Presidential Protective Division, the detail that surrounds the president. Agents work in shifts around a permanent formation with an inner ring that never leaves arm's reach, and outer rings extending through the building, the motorcade, and the surrounding streets. The agents closest to the president are trained to move toward a threat rather than away from it, and to use their own bodies as the last physical barrier. It is the most visible unit in the agency, and the smallest part of what it does. Vice Presidential Protective Division, a separate detail with its own agents, its own motorcade, and its own command structure. The two details are kept deliberately independent, so that no single failure can reach both officials. They plan separate routes, use separate communications, and are almost never in the same secured space at the same time. The arrangement exists to preserve continuity of government, not to protect two individuals. Counter-Assault Team, the unit that fights back. While the protective detail's entire purpose is to remove the protectee from danger, the counter-assault team exists to engage an attacking force and hold it in place long enough for that removal to work. They travel in the motorcade in a separate vehicle, carry rifles rather than sidearms, and operate as a small infantry element. They are the only part of the formation whose job is to stay when everyone else is leaving. Counter-Sniper Team. Marksmen positioned on rooftops and elevated ground around any site the president occupies. Their work is almost entirely observation. They map every window, roofline, and vantage point with a line of sight to the protectee, establish which are occupied, and monitor them continuously. The shooting is the rarest part of the job. The measurable output is a list of positions ruled out before anyone arrives. Uniformed Division. Roughly 1,400 officers in visible uniform, responsible for the White House complex, the Vice President's residence, and foreign diplomatic missions in Washington. They staff the fence line, the gates, and the checkpoints. Unlike the plainclothes details, deterrence is part of the function. The division also operates its own K-9 teams, emergency response teams, and a magnetometer program that screens every person entering a protected site. Counter-Surveillance Division, the unit that watches the people watching. Before a visit, its personnel work the area around the site looking for the preparation that precedes an attack, someone photographing entrances, timing motorcade arrivals, testing checkpoints, or returning repeatedly without reason. Most attacks on protected officials involve a period of reconnaissance beforehand. This division is built on the assumption that the surveillance is the part that can still be interrupted. Technical Security Division sweeps and secures the physical environment. Its personnel check rooms for listening devices, screen structures for explosives, test air and water at sites the president will use, and inspect food preparation. Every venue is examined before arrival and then held under continuous control, because a space that was clear yesterday means nothing if anyone has entered it since. Much of the work happens days before anyone knows a visit is planned. Office of Investigations, the half of the agency that has nothing to do with protection. It investigates counterfeiting, financial institution fraud, identity theft, and computer-based financial crime, and it operates field offices across the United States and abroad. Investigative work is not a secondary function added later. It is the reason the Secret Service exists at all. Financial Crimes Division, the direct descendant of the agency's founding mission. The Secret Service was created in 1865 to suppress counterfeit currency, at a point when an estimated third of all money in circulation in the United States was fake. It was established as a division of the Treasury Department, and protecting the president was not among its duties. Today, the same division investigates credit card fraud, money laundering, and large-scale financial crime, and the agency remains the primary federal authority on currency offenses. Cyber Investigations, the modern extension of the financial crimes mandate. Because most currency now exists as data rather than paper, the agency investigates network intrusions against financial institutions, ransomware, business email compromise, and cryptocurrency-based laundering. It runs cyber fraud task forces that combine federal agents with local police, prosecutors, and private sector analysts. The agency's authority here comes from the same statute written about counterfeit banknotes. Forensic Services Division, the agency's laboratory. It examines questioned documents, handwriting, inks, fingerprints, and digital evidence. And it maintains reference collections of counterfeit notes and of documents produced by known forgers. It also supports the protective mission by analyzing threatening letters and communications, comparing them against previous material to establish whether a threat is new or comes from a person already known to the agency. National Threat Assessment Center, a research unit rather than an operational one. It studies targeted violence, examining completed and attempted attacks to identify what preceded them, and publishes findings used by police forces, schools, and workplaces well outside the federal government. Its central conclusion is that attackers rarely snap. They plan, they signal, and their behavior changes in observable ways beforehand, which is what makes prevention possible at all. Protective Intelligence and Assessment Division maintains and investigates the population of individuals who have made threats or shown inappropriate interest in a protectee. Cases are assessed continuously rather than closed, because the concern is not what a person said once, but whether their behavior is escalating. Before any presidential visit, this division identifies which subjects live in the area and confirms where each of them is. Special Operations Division, the unit that plans and coordinates protective operations, rather than executing them directly. It handles the advance work, route selection, site surveys, hospital designation, contingency planning, and coordination with local police, fire services, and hospitals. Every location the president visits has a nearest trauma center identified in advance, a hospital notified, and a route to it planned. That work is done here. Airspace Security Branch controls the sky above a protected site. Working through the Aviation Authority, it establishes temporary flight restrictions around presidential movements and coordinates with the military commands responsible for intercepting aircraft that enter them. Washington has a permanently restricted zone with layered rings extending outward from the center. The persistent weakness has never been fast aircraft, which radar handles easily, but slow, low-flying ones. In 2015, a man landed a gyrocopter on the lawn of the Capitol after crossing the entire restricted zone without being stopped. Rowley Training Center, the agency's academy, located in Maryland, and named for the director who took responsibility after the Kennedy assassination. It includes full-scale mock-ups, a section of city street for motorcade drills, building interiors for close protection exercises, and driving courses for evasive and counter-ambush training. Agents rehearse ambushes repeatedly under varied conditions, on the reasoning that a response requiring conscious decision is already too slow. Office of Protective Operations, the division holding overall authority for the protective mission across every detail and site. It determines who receives protection, at what level, and with what resources. Protection is granted by statute to the president, the vice president, their immediate families, former presidents, and their spouses, visiting heads of state, and major presidential candidates within a defined window before an election. The decision to protect a candidate is made here, and it is one of the few Secret Service judgments that is openly political in effect. Thanks for watching. Which division surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. Also, please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.